Hi, I'm Carl Lazouz. Today's edition of CNN 10 begins in the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage of water between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. This Middle Eastern strait, which is 21 miles wide, is important to the global economy. About 30% of the world's crude oil passes through it. And now, a United States carrier strike group has been deployed to the strait. It includes an aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, as well as destroyers, a guided missile cruiser, and a group of bomber aircraft. Why are they all headed to the Middle East? It's to send a message to the nation of Iran. It forms the northern border of the Strait of Hormuz, and American officials say they have specific and credible intelligence that the Iranian military and groups that operate beneath it are planning to target U.S. forces in Syria, Iraq, and at sea. Tensions between Iran and the U.S. are soaring. Last month, America declared that part of Iran's military is a foreign terrorist organization, and Iran responded by declaring the U.S. is a state sponsor of terrorism. Because America accuses Iran of participating in terrorist attacks around the world, it's trying to pressure Iran to change its behavior. And one way it's doing that is by blocking Iran's revenues from oil sales, which are the main source of the country's foreign income. Iran has said it would continue finding buyers for its oil and using the Strait of Hormuz to ship it. It also directly warned America not to block or interfere with the strait. But while American officials say the U.S. isn't seeking war with Iran, it is prepared to respond with, quote, unrelenting force to any Iranian attacks on American interests or allies. Next today, a new conversation is taking place around events that occurred 3/4 of a century ago. While the diary of Anne Frank has served as an enduring and harrowing account of the Holocaust, the diary of Eva Hyman is barely known at all. It, too, involves a teenage girl's true experiences of Nazi persecution. And like Anne Frank, Eva also died in a concentration camp. They were both among the 6 million Jews who perished in the genocide. But there's a new interpretation of Eva's experiences aimed at a 21st century audience on a 21st century social media platform. And while not everyone agrees with how it's being presented, it is reaching hundreds of thousands.
More than 70 years after the Holocaust, there are a dwindling few survivors to pass on their memories. Their stories commemorated in documentaries and museums amidst a fear their lessons are fading.
Hi, my name's Eva. That's me.
Eva Hyman is the new face of those lessons. The 13-year-old Hungarian Jew kept a diary in the last months before she was deported to Auschwitz in May 1944, where she would die.
I'm about to turn 13. We are surrounded by war, but I'm always seeing the sun.
Her story was all but forgotten until Instagram brought it back to life.
We were looking for a way to deal with this memory and manage this memory in a way that is going to be relevant for the younger generation today.
Eva's diary was reimagined on social media. On March 31st, 1944, she wrote, "Today an order was issued that from now on Jews have to wear a yellow star-shaped patch. The order tells exactly how big the star patch must be and that it must be sewn on every outer garment, jacket, or coat. When Grandma heard this, she started acting up again, and we called the doctor." The idea to bring the diary to life on Instagram was the brainchild of Mati and Maya Kochavi, who wanted the Holocaust to reach a younger generation.
The diary, the journal, is very short. It starts on February 12th, when it's her birthday. On March, the Germans invade into Hungary. In May 30th, she's already on the train to Auschwitz. So it's a journal of 108 days, that's all.
I don't think we will see sweet mother for some time.
Eva's story was released on the eve of Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel. By that time, it had hundreds of thousands of followers. Not everyone has been thrilled with the Instagram story, advertised on billboards like this here behind me all around Tel Aviv. Critics have said it dumbs down the Holocaust and is a PR campaign in bad taste. Others have said it's a very short distance from a social media campaign like this to selfies at Auschwitz. That was never the intent behind Eva Hyman's story, of course.
Social media, especially Instagram, is shallow if you're looking for content that is shallow. And if you're looking for content that is powerful and has magnitude and can cause revolutions even, you will very easily find it there.
In her final diary entry written 3 days before she was deported from Hungary, she wrote, "Dear diary, I don't want to die. I want to live, even if it means that I'll be the only person here allowed to stay. I would wait for the end of the war in some cellar, just as long as they didn't kill me, only that they should let me live." This was a way of humanizing the Holocaust for a modern audience and making it more relevant to millennials. It's the same message of never again, its creators insist, just reimagined for a new generation to learn. Oren Lieberman, CNN, Jerusalem.
10-second trivia. What do Ulysses, Operation Icebridge, and Calypso all have in common? Are they all James Joyce stories, NASA missions, Nintendo games, or 1960s pop songs? These are all the names of NASA missions that were launched starting in the 90s. Of course, the most famous NASA mission is probably Apollo 11, when American astronauts first flew to and then set foot on the moon. That happened on July 20th, 1969, making this year the 50th anniversary of the historic accomplishment. What sometimes gets overlooked, though, are NASA's other moon missions. There were several of them before the program wrapped up in 1972, and they provided history and humor all their own.
600 million people watched Neil Armstrong take those famous first steps on the moon.
That's one small step for man.
But after the Apollo 11 astronauts returned to Earth, public interest in later Apollo missions began to fade.
Houston, we've had a problem.
But the people who continued to tune in were treated to some pretty special moments. Astronauts took advantage of their unique surroundings to have a bit of fun. During the Apollo 17 mission, Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt sang their own rendition of The Fountain in the Park.
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. May.
The classic jumping photo. It may have been attempted at the last wedding you attended.
Come on out here and give me a salute.
Well, during the Apollo 16 mission, astronaut Charlie Duke captured John Young in midair while saluting to the flag.
Okay, here we go, a big one. Off the ground, about 4. There we go.
It's since gone down as one of the most famous Apollo photos ever taken. When they weren't taking epic pictures, Duke and Young got to drive around in a lunar rover. The electric buggies were used on the last Apollo missions, 15, 16, and 17, and provided astronauts a fast way to cover large distances, helping them make more scientific discoveries than they could on foot, or just to do a bit of joyriding.
I thought the ride was real sporty. It bounced a lot. Sometimes both front wheels were off the surface. The back end is like driving on ice and breaking loose occasionally, but it was a lot of fun.
Back in the 16th century, Galileo taught his students that objects fall at the same rate regardless of their size or mass. That is, if they're not restricted by any resistance from the air.
Well, in my left hand I have a feather. In my right hand a hammer.
Well, since the moon has virtually no air to breathe, Apollo 15 Commander David Scott decided to test this experiment by dropping a feather and a hammer from the same height. Lo and behold, they did in fact hit the ground at the same time.
How about that?
And just for a little fun, Alan Shepard brought the head of a 6-iron and a couple of golf balls aboard Apollo 14. The head was modified so he could attach it to an instrument that collected rock samples.
I'm going to try an old sand trap shot here.
It should have gone probably on the Earth maybe 30, 35 yards. But that little rascal went over 200 yards with a one-hand shot like that, and it was in the air. The time of flight was almost 35 seconds.
Miles and miles and miles.
These lighter moments punctuated the main mission of scientific exploration. But perhaps the most enduring images are the ones when the astronauts actually looked back at Earth. This one taken on Apollo 17, the last time man was on the moon. It's known simply as the Blue Marble.
It's hard to get a pall over that truly Earth-tastic image. It makes you moony-eyed. It's like someone hung the moon and then made a world of difference by taking a picture from it. You can see why it stars on so moony posters. Sometimes a little space is all you need to see how beautiful the world can be. I'm Carl Azus for CNN.